This program is brought to you by the following proud sponsors: the National Electrical Contractors Association, Southern Sierras Chapter, providing power to America for over 100 years, and by the Inland Empire Labor Management Cooperation Committee, bringing labor and management together to help build this region's future, and by the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Locals 440 and 477, supplying the skilled workforce lighting the way to America's future.
Welcome to Energy Independence. I'm Sean Reynolds. My special guest today is no stranger to the education system. A former teacher, Assembly Member Jose Medina chairs the Assembly Committee on Higher Education. During his first term, he led the efforts to ensure that the University of California at Riverside's new medical school received $15 million of full and continuous funding. He says he recognizes the critical role higher education plays in supporting jobs and opening up the doors for opportunity. So we will speak to him about education. And just as important, we'll talk to him about good paying jobs and improving working conditions in the Inland Empire. Welcome to the show, Assemblyman. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you very much, Sean. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Now, you were an RCC trustee on the Board of Trustees, is this correct?
Correct. I served 13 years as a board member at RCC.
And an educator. You were a teacher for many years.
Right. Taught at Poly High School for 20 years.
And you are a graduate from UCR, from our local university.
Correct.
A product of UCR. And if they're producing assemblymen and lifelong educators, I think they're doing something right.
They're doing a great job.
So before we start the show, I would like to give a shout out. I am an alum of UCR, and I'd like to give a shout out to UCR's favorite son right now, Juan Felipe Herrera, who was recently appointed as Poet Laureate of the United States.
Right.
So I'd like to quite an honor, and I would like to say congratulations to him. And Riverside City should be proud of that. To have a great poet, to have a great university, to have great educators, these are things, some of the things that builds a city and makes a city great.
I think we have about 7 members of the Assembly who are graduates of UC Riverside, including Anthony Rendon, who got his PhD at UCR. So I think UCR has much to be proud of.
Oh, yes. Now, as an educator, can you give us a report card on the state of education in Riverside County and Riverside City?
Well, as kids go back to school, this week was the first week back to school for Riverside Unified students. And having served as a school board member and of Jurupa Unified School District, and having been an educator here in this area for about 34 years, and now chairing higher education, I think, like I said, that there is much to be proud of in education here in Riverside. Our graduates are doing well. They're going on to all sorts of different programs. They're going on to higher education, both here and other places. I think they are getting jobs. I'm proud to say that I have some of my own former students working in Sacramento. So I think the state of education in our area is good, always room for improvement, and I think as we have our discussion here today, we can talk about what some of those areas are.
Well, let's talk about that. Let's talk a little bit about the community college system. What do you see, anything new? What do you see upcoming in our community college system?
You know, I think RCC, which is our own community college here in our area, has great programs that leading to the 2-year degree, great programs in certificate programs, excellent nursing programs, programs especially out in Norco that are more technical in nature, that feed into places like Cal Poly Pomona. And I think we also have a good history in, like I said, certificate programs, like auto technicians, air conditioning, and some of the skilled areas as well.
And those are important.
They are, very much so.
And interesting you brought that up. We recently did a show with a member of Norco College, Dr. Kevin Fleming, and he is the Dean of the Instruction on Career and Technical Training at Norco. And our show was about the partnership between the IBEW and NECA's program, the JATC, the Joint Apprenticeship Training Committee's program, with Norco College.
Yeah.
The program, it's a great program. One major benefit of the program is completely paid for by NECA. It's administered now by Norco College, and a great facet of it, because it's local, is that the students get their credits and then they can go on to get, like you said, a 2-year degree.
Very good. I'm also aware of kind of intern type of programs that the community colleges have. Chaffey College has a great one with CSI, with California Steel, where students of Chaffey College actually work while they're studying at California Steel and get the very technical knowledge that they need on the job, and they're getting it there as they are students. And I know that programs like the IBEW offer the same kind of programs.
And that is great. That's bringing up, we feel that's bringing up the middle class. And when I say middle class, really, I think in this country we don't really see things as upper class and lower class. We're wage earners, or people making a check. And so we've been through this recession, and we're looking for ways in America to bring up, so people can live the American dream. So with that in mind, what's your views on organized labor and groups like the IBEW and NECA?
I know that traditionally, historically, right, the United States has relied on manufacturing for middle class jobs. Right. As we think of the auto industry,
Or the steel industry.
or the steel industry, more locally, the steel industry here. And as we've seen some of the decline in those areas, I also think that we are seeing other industries out here in this area picking up some of that slack. And also, we want to make sure that we can do everything we can as a state to incentivize and those kind of businesses so that they will stay, the ones that we do have here, stay here, and also try to attract. And in my 3 years of serving in the state legislature, I've had opportunity to come out and see some of those businesses right here in our area. And I would point out to, and I'm forgetting the name of the business, but he does trailers, and he equips trailers for lots of different functions and ships them all over the world. And they do things like furbishing trailers for doctors or furbishing mobile dental. And these are very specific, highly technical work that he does, and he sells and ships these trailers all over the world. And they're doing it here in Riverside. And I would also say some of the new green technology, alternative energy, also doing well out here.
Oh, certainly, certainly. Well, craft workers, we call them, are in much demand, so much so that I was reading an article, it was published in May by the Wall Street Journal, saying there's a shortage of craft workers across the United States. So to that, right, the training that we're getting out of our community colleges is really important.
It is.
And if we don't train our craft workers, we're building this economy. We have a beautiful medical school. We have this corridor that we're building in Riverside from the ports to the east. These all require buildings, infrastructure, and they're going to require qualified craft workers for this.
And I would say that as we talk about education, that is certainly an area where education could do better. We need to do more in educating young people on the job opportunities that exist in those areas. I think that we are doing a pretty good job of letting students know of the higher education opportunities. And I think we emphasize that. And I don't think that's wrong. But at the same time, we need to let students know that these jobs exist and that they require specific training and where they can go to get that training. And that is one area that I think K-12 education can do a better job in, is letting students know. And I would use as an example something that happens at San Bernardino that I don't see happen in Riverside, and that is to take students, to take high school students and meet with the unions where they have their apprenticeship programs available. And they have a great program that exists in San Bernardino where they bus in the students, I think, to Orange Show, and the students walk in through the Orange Show and see all the different unions and all the different apprenticeship programs, whether it be in electricity or pipe fitting, and the job opportunities that are there. So we could do better.
The IBEW does similar things. They bring local high school students in to see their program, to see the JATC program. So that is a great way to bring up the middle class.
Yeah.
And moving on into employment, one thing that happens if you don't have a qualified middle class, we've done a series of shows here on contractor fraud. And the use of illegal practices by contractors, bringing in, well-meaning people, but they're out there to make a buck. And the district attorney, the assistant district attorney of Riverside, Vicki Hightower on the show, she told us that the state is losing between $800 million and $1.2 billion just in the money that fraudulent contractors are cash paying their employees. So she works mainly with prevailing wage. And prevailing wage on these public job sites guarantees that there's going to be a livable wage for the workers that are there. So you agree with prevailing wage?
I certainly do. As a trustee of Riverside Community College, always supported prevailing wage and still do, and would very much advocate for all cities to make sure that they are paying prevailing wages. And also as a trustee at Riverside Community College, I would support the project labor agreements that I think would also help stabilize labor. And in fact, I thought as a trustee, and still do, that project labor agreements bring in, guarantee better work as well.
Well, it's great that you brought that up. You kind of jumped the gun on there. I want to tell you. I want to read something that Governor Jerry Brown said about PLAs, project labor agreements. And in 2011, he signed Senate Bill 922, and that is protecting. It's not protecting PLAs, but what he said about it is, I am signing Senate Bill 922 to prohibit bans on project labor agreements. Contrary to what the opponents claim, this bill does not require local governments to adopt a PLA. In fact, this bill preserves the right of all sides to debate what obviously is a hotly contested issue. Seems fair to me, even democratic, he says. And these PLAs, they're debated, of course. They've been with us for decades, for many, many years. And they help to build some giant projects. They help to build the Diamond Reservoir project. And they're ensuring, they're for workers, really, aren't they?
They are. And as a member of the Community College trustee, I'm proud to say that I was one of 3 votes, along with now Congressman Takano, and board member Mary Figueroa, who voted for the project labor agreement at RCC. And having served there for 13 years, I would a lot of times see at our board meetings things coming back to us, things, bids that had to be redone. I forget the term for that. But lots of changes, job changes, I think they were called back then. And I think a project labor agreement brings in more local workers.
Yes.
Keeps the money local, and ensures that there are no disputes and I think overall improves the quality of the labor. So I'm proud of my voting record on project labor agreements while I was at RCC, and stand with the governor in support of them.
And they do. In some ways, going back to what we discussed with the contractor fraud, with PLAs in place, that makes it fairly difficult for fraudulent contractors.
Very true, very true. I think it's a way also of monitoring all the work that's being done.
And going back to what we were talking about, good paying jobs. Well, like I say, these project labor agreements, they are for the benefit of the worker mainly. They do benefit the job, like you were saying, because they take arbitration and they make it so it's a defined effort.
And so there are no labor disputes
Right.
also during the job. I mean, it's guaranteed
That the
that there are
project
no-
will not stop.
Yes.
Yes, and so by doing all of this, this is strengthening the middle class. This is bringing up. This is something that we keep talking about. That we hear politicians talk about. We hear our neighbors talk about how I'm losing money. My wages are stagnant. Well, we take this shortage of workers. We take these training programs. These workers deserve to have a living wage. They deserve it. And when they do have a living wage, some great things happen.
They do, and I think the nation, our nation's history is that, how we are different from other countries, how we are different from other countries that struggle more, is that we have a large middle class, and now we're seeing some of the gains that we've made historically over the years erode, and I, as an assembly member, want to make sure that I am fighting for reducing perhaps the gap between the haves and the have-nots.
So, Mr. Medina, could you explain the safety benefits of a PLA, how they make the job safer, and what they do for the community?
With the example of Riverside Community College, it was Measure C that brought all the opportunity for new construction at Riverside Community College. And so we wanted to make sure that the workers doing the work were certainly highly trained, highly qualified. And the project labor agreement guaranteed that the workers doing the work were highly trained, highly qualified to do that work, therefore guaranteeing the safety of the work that they were doing, where our children were going to be attending classes. Also, another benefit of the project labor agreement, as I said, it was local taxes that funded the project. So by having a project labor agreement, we are keeping the jobs local, we are keeping the money in our local economy, so that the workers who are working will be spending that money here. Whether they go to eat at a restaurant here, whether they put the money into our local banks, the money is staying local, buying a car here.
Family.
Exactly. The money is reinvested in our own local economy. So it is maybe more than a win-win for us.
And as far as safety goes, of course, it goes without saying, if you have qualified workers, now you're going to have a safe facility. You can have an advanced safe facility.
And it ensures that the contractors doing the work are not bringing in people who are not under qualified, not under trained. So yes.
Or, like you said, of course, from outside the region. These PLAs are helping to keep workers in the region. So those better paid workers are putting their dollars back into the community. It is a neighborhood agreement to where people from all the neighborhoods of the community have a chance to, again, participate in this American dream, if you will.
I actually saw a study done by a young college student from here in our area who did a follow-up study on our project labor agreement and showed the very positive results of the project labor agreement for Riverside Community College.
Well, we appreciate your support. Now, moving forward, we're heading into an election year. I mean, it seems like a wild ride. Do you have any predictions, or do you have any thoughts on the pluses, the minuses, what we might see in our region, and maybe even the nation?
I do think that our region, the trend where we are going, I think is going to continue to grow. As our demographics change in our region, I think we're going to see more Democrats getting elected. and I will predict that. And I think that 2016 is going to see high voter turnout. So I think we'll continue to see change, not only in local offices, state offices, school boards, city council, and I'm very optimistic in the way we're going.
Now, Mr. Medina, along those lines, what about high school training? You know, when I was younger, we used to call it shop class. Now I think they have different designations for it. But what about training? Not all students, of course, are going to be able to go to a four-year university or get an advanced degree. So what about them? Do you think we should bring back this technical training that we used to have in high schools?
I think it's a very good question, because indeed, not all students are going to be going on to four-year colleges. Right. And as we said before, the jobs are out there. So I think whatever programs we can have, and we do have different programs, whether they are career academies that put students actually in a working situation early on. And we have them here in Riverside. They exist at North High School, at Poly High School, okay, where students can be in a law enforcement academy, where they're looking to see what the job of law enforcement is. Or at Poly High School, they have a culinary arts academy.
Right, I've seen that.
Right? These are kind of academy pathway programs that work very well, that put students get hands-on experience early on, and then puts them into jobs as they finish high school. Also, career technical training. Mm-hmm. Again, hands-on education, practical, making learning more practical, making it more relevant for young people. So it's not just math for, you know, why are we doing this math, but seeing what the applications of math might be. Exactly right. in plumbing or carpentry. I think those programs that exist, that we cooperate with workforce investment, are very important, and that we need to be not only supported but expanded.
Well, thank you very much for being here today, Assemblyman Medina. It was a pleasure having you.
Thank you very much, Sean. Thanks for having me.
Assemblymember Jose Medina says that his eagerness to assist students beyond the classroom motivated him to pursue public office. The IBEW and NECA are also eager to assist and support the local community with training, careers, and plans for a brighter future. They represent hard-working men and women who deserve the opportunity to live a sustainable, prosperous life. We appreciate the Assembly members speaking with us today, and we wish continued success on improving the lives and constituents in the Inland Empire. For Energy Independence, I'm Sean Reynolds. Thank you for watching.
The preceding program was brought to you by these proud sponsors: the National Electrical Contractors Association, Southern Sierras Chapter, providing power to America for over 100 years, and by the Inland Empire Labor Management Cooperation Committee, bringing labor and management together to help build this region's future, and by the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Locals 440 and 477, supplying the skilled workforce lighting the way to America's future.